Hi there, my name is Leah and I'd like to welcome you to this new earSketch video about for loops. I'll be summarizing what you've seen so far about loops and then I walk you through a workflow. So for loops are a perfect example of how you can use code to make the computer do your work. Let's say you have a printer and you want to make 200 copies of a document. Well, you're not going to press the print button 200 times, but you're going to write 200 copies into your printing window. Well, this is a hidden for loop. The computer has only one instruction, print the document, but it goes over the instruction 200 times instead of you having to write the instruction 200 times. Now let's see how we can apply this to music in earSketch. So let's say that you want to add a sound at the beginning of every measure in your song, but you want it to play only for the first half of the measure. So from measure 1 to 1.5, then 2 to 2.5, etc. And then you want to add a different sound in the second half of each measure. So from measure 1.5 to 2, then 2.5 to 3, etc. Well, if you didn't have for loop, you would write 2 feet medias for every measure of your song. Ain't nobody got time for that. So let's see how we can do this with only 2 feet media and 1 for loop. So let's see how this example works. As usual, we have the earSketch library imported, then we initialize our code and at the end we finish it, and we have the set tempo. In this particular example, we use 2 sound files which are stored into the variables drums1 and drums2. And here is our for loop. So for loops are easily recognizable because they start with for and they are indented. So indentation is the space at the beginning of a line. For example, this line which starts here is indented, which means that it's an instruction inside the for loop. But this line has no indentation, which means it's outside of the loop. Let's go back at the first line of the for loop. Measure is the loop counter. It's a variable that was created just for the loop. Every time we go through one iteration of the loop, which means the computer completes the indented instructions, this variable measure is upgraded to the next integer. Range indicates that it starts with 1 and ends at 9. This means that measure will be first equal to 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but not 9, because the finishing number is exclusive. So why is the first number inclusive and the last one exclusive? It depends on each language. Here it's Python. It was decided by people who created the language. Now let's see the instructions inside the for loop. The first fit media places the sound drums1 on track 1, from measure to measure plus 0.5. And the second fit media places sound drums2 on track 2, from measure plus 0.5 to measure plus 1. We'll be using this table to help see what the variables are while the computer goes through the loop. So the first column here is measure, our loop counter. And then we have the start time of drums1, which is measure, and the end time of drums1, which is measure plus 0.5. And then we have the start time of drums2 and the end time of drums2. I encourage you to try to fill the table. So pause the video, try to fill it for measure is equal to 1, 2, and 3. To see if you can determine what the variables are, and then play the video to see if you're right. So when measure is equal to 1, drums1 is going to start at measure 1 and end at measure plus 0.5, which is 1 plus 0.5, which is 1.5. So you can see it here in the DAW. Drums2 is going to start at 1.5 when drums1 end, and it's going to end at 1 plus 1, which is 2. So you can see here in the digital audio workstation. Now when measure is equal to 2, drums1 starts at measure 2 and ends at measure 2.5. You can see it here. And drums2 starts at measure 2.5 and stops at measure 3. Now we can go a little faster. For measure 3, drums1 starts at measure 3 and ends at measure 3.5, and drums2 starts at measure 3.5 and ends at measure 4. And so we go on until measure is equal to 8. And then drums1 is going to start at measure 8 and at measure 8.5, and drums2 is going to start at measure 8.5 and end at measure 9. And this way we have filled both of our tracks with the different drum sounds. So let's see what this sounds like in earSketch. And this concludes our video on for loops. Thank you for watching and see you soon!